Welcome everyone to another Voices with Vervaeke. I am here with Hsieh and Tamaki. I'll probably mispronounce this. Kobayashi-Hsieh.
Kobayashi-Hsieh.
And I'm very excited about this. Ethan and I have had a couple of conversations. We've been trying to coordinate things because I'm really interested in seeing some of how his embodied ecology of practices work. And we finally got things synced up and we're going to make it work. And so I'm going to turn things over to the two of you and just talk me through. I'll raise my left hand if I want to intervene and ask a question.
Can do. So we are here introducing Tiamat. So Tiamat stands for the Integrative Approach and Methodology of Active Transformation. And it's kind of how we call our ecology of practices, which started as a performance training thing, because my background is in theater. I come as a theater director. You come as a dancer, actress, performer. And so it's mostly us figuring out how do we do that thing better. And then obviously I stumbled upon your work, John, and then it became, wow, this could do more than that. It seems to have very, very specific links all the way back historically, but also now, like cognitively, how these practices actually affect our cognition in very, very complex and interesting ways. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Do you want to share a little bit about where you're coming from with this?
I feel that I've been always, like, past few years, I've been feeling that this method could be more than performer practice. And then I've been bringing that into relationship for years and years. And then I feel that your encountering with John made it really like made the language. And therefore we could build this method into more broader applicable.
Yeah, and accessibility as well. Yeah. So yeah, before that I was very locked into just making the art thing. And then Tamaki really pushed for this to grow out. So Tiamat as a whole focuses on 4 very, very specific cognitive mechanics. And these are what I call very loosely the heads of Tiamat. So we have metacognition, which is one, in other words, the relationship with the mind to its processes. Mind and body is interoception, and that came out of me looking at the work of Bessel van der Kolk and trauma-informed practices. Then there is Jung's transcendent function or active imagination, which is the mind reconciling itself in like a very, very specific recursive way, and understanding its own processes on a much higher level. And then most recently, thanks to the Dialogue OS course that I was on with Taylor for 13 weeks, transjective rationality has come in as fourth head, in the sense that how the mind interacts with its environment socially, but also being able to shift in and out of the subjective and the objective. And thank you for lending the word transjective in your talk with Jonathan Rusin. Which is where that sort of popped up. And so it's kind of moved itself into a place where there are certain focuses. So some of the physical practices obviously are very interoceptive in terms of building that competency. But what we're looking at is how those competencies can start to be accepted into other areas.
Right.
So
cool. This is so cool.
We think it is, but we hope it is interesting. So I will just start by showing like a few videos of some of the practices that we do. And I think you will find some of these familiar, but also unfamiliar in ways that I hope are interesting, in the sense that we have our small research group as part of our company. We've been working with the Singapore branch here to try and innovate some of these exercises and take them in directions which we hope are more facilitative of that accepted cognition. And then we are going to Indonesia next month to try this out on that end and try and get that input, cultural context put in. So I will share my screen. Can you see it actually?
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Okay, cool. So this is an example of one of our animal forms exercises. Okay. So the animal forms are basically a kind of meshing between calisthenic exercises. Obviously, yoga is in there as well. And there's a lot of influence from people like Ido Portal and the movement culture. Very fascinating. But the thing that we're doing here is that, so I'm on the leftmost side. One of our research friends, Ben, is in the middle, and then Tamaki is obviously on the right. The way the animal forms are built is that there is a set form. That's the one that I'm doing, is the basic form. But within the basic form, there is what we call a play point. And that's a part of the form itself, which needs improvisation. So you can play around in that, kind of like you're jazzing on a chord for a little while.
Right.
And so Ben he's trying to accept that play point and trying to embody qualities that he is experiencing subjectively.
Ah, I see.
So how he's feeling changes the form and how he does it. So then what Tamaki is doing, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So there's a skeletal core form that you sort of memorize, and then there are points where you can improvise on it and try to get it more embodied and enacted in that specific situation. Do I understand you correctly?
Yes. So imagine this, like in the basic form, the attention is completely interoceptive. I'm trying to see whether or not I'm using the right muscles, I'm activating the right muscle groups. I'm trying to notice if this connects me to some kind of associations, some kind of memory, right? And then when it starts to get to the second level where Ben was at, then it's about opening up to the rest of the world, using the eyes for attention, using the body as a seeing mechanism, and saying, okay, so you notice that the things that are causing him to change are things that he's noticing in his environment.
Oh, I see. So the core is interoceptive, but the play point is you're doing the enacted connections to your environment. Yes.
Now, Tamaki is really amazing. Tamaki's taken it to the advanced form. And the advanced form is where that quality starts to break the form. And I suppose the invitation is then, how far can you break the thing while still doing the thing?
Right.
Yes. And then I think I want to privilege the participatory knowing here in terms of what's that like for you? I didn't ask you if this will be recorded.
While I was doing that, I was feeling the quality of like snake-like quality. And that makes me see the world different. Like the kind of the quality of the world changes. Like when the quality of my body changes, the world that I perceive changes.
Okay, so you take on, through participatory knowing, a particular identity imaginally, and then that changes your perspectival knowing of your environment. And then in the movement, you're exploring that particular perspectival knowing. Am I getting it?
Yeah, so that like loops. So the world that I'm perceiving is changing. Therefore, the sensory also changes. So that is the thing that make my movement change. And there is like constant feedback.
Oh, I love this. I love this. This is amazing.
She's adjusting her salience landscaping as the thing is happening, which is really amazing. So obviously there's more than one. There are 5 animal forms in total. This is like, it has this sort of this passive health benefits and all that sort of stuff. But I want to say this, that I think we're trying to address this issue where, and this is my issue with traditional practices and in relation to meta crisis at the moment, is that a lot of the wisdom practices that have thousands of years of history suffer from being either or usually all three, disembodied, decontextualized, and objectified.
Right,
And I
right.
think this is the issue. This is the issue that I'm trying to
Yep.
address with it, is that it's one thing to, I mean, the action is the same. You can break this down, and people who have a lot more experience in movement practices than I do will be able to feed into like, okay, well, how to optimize it.
Mhm.
But this is is trying to bridge that gap. It's trying to use the body to bridge into the way that we approach our cognition.
Okay, so I'm doing I don't know if you saw the talk, my Cambridge talk at Rationality and Ritual, and I'm doing all this work on ritual knowing, the kind of knowing that one acquires through ritual. What you're doing, and I mean this as a compliment, is a proper ritual. And here's the thing: there's two sides in this ongoing and very healthy debate within the sort of Kobayashi-Hsieh of ritual. One group says, no, what you need to be doing, the knowing in a ritual comes from evolving the ritual. And what you're doing is constantly evolving the ritual so you improve the fittedness. The other group says, no, the ritual is like a masterpiece and you don't change it. Instead, you try to change to conform to a masterpiece that represents sort of the peak of human performance. And then most people, more recently, like Vervaeke and myself, say, no, it's actually both. It's actually, you're trying to do both together. So that's exactly the tension you're talking about right there. And you're trying to find that sweet spot of optimal gripping between those two different kinds of constraints. That's very, very cool. That's very, very cool.
And this is the thing that these animal forms are a relatively new iteration. We didn't used to do them this way.
Mm-hmm.
We used to do them as like a vocabulary of movement. Would you call it that? You know what I mean? So you have certain
It
moves.
was more traditional.
So that you mean that when you say transitional, what do you mean?
Transitional meaning that it's just like the point to hit, and the process was quite free.
Yes.
To hit.
Yes, but because of our recent foray into Qigong, basically we're finding that, okay, what if we took a different approach to it? What if it was that the form itself, the order itself, has a defined chaos within it?
Yes, exactly.
Then we allow that to open.
That's what I mean. You're trying to here's the set part, the masterpiece, and you have to conform to it. And then there's space within it in which you can make it conform to you. And then you get the reciprocal opening going between the two. That's beautiful. That's really beautiful.
So then the next thing that I want to show you is, because we had talked about this in our last chat and it got you excited. So I want to make good on this. It's the push hands exercise.
Right.
So are you able to see that? Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So push hands is very simple.
Yep.
Eyes closed. And they're just keeping wrist contact. But you know the handshake thing that we've evolved to do?
Yeah.
So everything that's happening in there, sensing temperature, sensing little moves, please describe what your experience of push hands is. What are you sensing for? Because I realized I was about to jump into it.
It's really hard to explain, to be honest. I am sensing literally the between point of my partner and myself.
Yes.
I am not trying for my partner to be in my world. And I also am not trying to enter into my partner's world. We are searching the point where we can co-create.
Yes.
And there is just nice amount of tension.
Yes.
But it's not too strong. It's not too soft. This optimal tension.
Yeah.
So on the procedural end, it's that you see this change in direction. No one person is leading that. So if Ben is pushing even just a little bit, right? Tamachan can release that, and then it becomes the move.
Right. Yeah.
You see? And then the other way is also true. So we're trying to then, that's level 1. Level 2 is where they're starting to move and change hands.
Yeah.
Level 3, we start to introduce points of contact. So the idea is that any one person can attack when an impulse to do so hits, and the objective is to dodge.
Yeah.
But you dodge by feeling where they are going with the body. It's very like it's implicit pattern recognition, basically.
Yeah. I did something like this. I did, in fact, when I Return to the Source, we have 2 hands, and you're doing it with 2 hands. And what you have to do is find the opening where you can gently caress the face of your partner.
Are you doing the eyes open or eyes closed?
That is eyes open.
Does it open? So when you're doing this, is it all eyes open all the time?
Yes, yes. But because you have 2 hands, you have to really be in your opponent partner has 2 hands. Like you can't go into Cartesian calculation space. It's too fast. You have to get like Tamaki said, you have to get where you're feeling what's in the in-between zone. I was doing it. David Fuller was there. He was there filming. While we were there, we were filming a documentary about me and my work. And so he was there, and we were doing this. And at first, it was very easy for me. And then he said, "Oh, I had this insight." He said, "As long as I was trying to touch your face, you were just knocking me aside easily and touching my face." But he said, instead, when I opened up a space and tried to feel how you were coming into it, then I was able to, right? So he went from focusing on my face, and he couldn't do the practice. I was just moving his hands aside, touching his face every like second or two. And then he did get better. And he said, because what he did is he opened his awareness up into a receptive space, and he was receiving how my hands were coming in. And so he had that moment where he shifted his perspectival knowing, and then he suddenly got much better in the practice.
It's the soft focusing, right? Where like you're not hyper focusing into something specifically, because that shifts too quickly.
And even with the eyes, I was teaching, because I was teaching them Tai Chi while I was there. It's called tiger eyes, right? So you're a tiger scanning the forest. You don't fix on any one point because you don't know where the prey might be. So you're doing this constant sensitizing flow, looking for things that are traces and signification of where there might be something that is worthy of longer attention.
Yes, right. That's kind of what I think this is kind of what I'm trying to get.
I think so. Yeah, it feels very similar. Like just watching it. Like I do this too. I've done this, the closed hands, push hands, sticky hands. So I know what you're talking about. This is very cool. Yeah, you're right. This is very, very cool. So at first I noticed like you're staying center line, and then you start to, rotation comes in, and then you start to move. So do you take students through that progression, like yes. step by step? I see.
Yes, until it gets to this point. And so this is level 4,
right,
where it starts to become a grapple and starts to move itself into an intersubjective space.
Yeah.
Here, one person goes, I move. The other person says, I allow. And the thing that's being allowed, and this is often a very, very subtle distinction to make, but it's not to do the same thing as the other person, it's to allow. Yeah. Go. I feel like you know.
Yeah, so we were doing this at Return to the Source, but we added an extra dimension. So you're doing this, the dance, and you're trying to flow over each other, and like you're talking about, but you're also doing parkour around the environment. So like there's logs and trees, and you're flowing over that, right? And so the dance also incorporates the topography of the environment as a third.
Yes. And then, but here it's introducing an extra element, which is relationship. So when the person says, I allow, I think the invitation that I often phrase it is, whatever you feel the other person wants to do, support that as best you can.
Right.
You see? And so the relationship is emergent. That's the thing that we're allowing.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I find it interesting about like what you're moving to and what was happening at Return to the Source, very convergent from very independent sources. I think that points to something deep happening. Something very deep.
Oh, wait till you see what else is coming.
Okay.
Because these are what we call like first tier exercises. They are relatively basic, not in a derogatory sense, but the thing that
there's my talk at Cambridge there. Me in the suit.
Yes.
Your interest is being revealed on the camera.
The algorithm has given me away. Okay. And so this one is what we call key motions. So key motions is based on this one of the formula is very fundamental part of Qigong, is the decoupling of the mind from the breath and the recoupling of the body with the breath. So I'm not doing the breathing, I'm letting the body do the breathing for me. Right. So key motions is a kind of version of that, except that it's isolated to specific parts. So we're doing the spine, right? Do that with the arms, do that with the legs. And then we introduce our voice work, which instantly is the same thing, that sound is just breath with vibration.
Yes.
Right? So you will see Tamachan start to progress through these into monologos. And I'll privilege a bit of sound here.
So beautiful.
It's unformed sound, right? Yeah. So we begin with an unformed sound and then we move into like phonetics.
Right.
So now taking it into words. So now starting to evolve those into phrases. Hashi no sekai ka. The world of your legs.
Into my body, and I can release the thing that I need to release. Really.
So cool. So how long does it take to learn how to do that?
Depends how fast the person breaks to get stopped.
Yeah.
How long did it take you?
When did I start to do it? Because it was like developed through time. So
3 years ago, I think we started working on this. Was it? Because this is a lot of it is inspired by Kristen Linklater's work. You can read a book, Freeing the Natural Voice. It's amazing. It's very, very anatomically precise.
but in Kobe, we were doing it already, which means like an year.
Yes.
1 year.
Probably. Oh yeah, actually about 1 year, because it takes a long time to decouple the rational mind from the sound that it's making. What this doesn't mean anything, but it does.
Yes.
Actually.
Yes.
Inside.
Yeah.
So we're trying not to fall too quickly into the propositional space.
Right.
But
I see
to
that. I
allow
saw
the
that.
body come. Can you just translate a little bit what you were talking about with in Japanese? Before you entered full body monologues.
Immediately before, I was talking about the world of leg and what it's doing to me. And then I was mentioning about hand world. While I am in the world of leg, my world of my arm is being ignored.
No.
Yeah. And like, even though I am mentioning about the hand, still needing to focus on my leg world feels frustrating or something like that.
Right.
Like feels weird or dissociated or something.
手の世界が。そう。So yes. No wonder you felt frustrated coming up.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
So, can you talk about how you see the 4 dimensions you mentioned earlier, the metacognitive, etc., how they are showing up in these practices?
Right. Okay. So here, if we were doing just key motions, for example, right? It's very interoceptive. Yeah. But at the same time, interoception is based on metacognition. You have to have some metacognitive faculty to be able to observe yourself observing the body.
Yeah.
Right. So if that's occurring at the same time, then now I can start to train my metacognition, what I call like the pilot consciousness or the instrumental consciousness, to
Right.
step outside and go like, okay, this is just a shape that my body is in. And this is the thing that I often offer as an invitation to participants. Like, you're doing animal forms, it's just a shape that your body is in. You're doing key motions, it's just a shape that your body is in. So start to take a look at, how is my mind reacting to this?
Right.
Okay, it's reacting to some kind of pain or fatigue. Okay, now if I have to make some sort of sound, in order to not get locked up in trying to make sense with the words I'm saying, and instead the invitation is to just make an unformed sound.
Mhm.
What's this block? Why can't I just go and just use my body to make the sound? That's the thing we want to see. That's the thing that we're trying to do a transparency opacity shift to say,
Right. Right.
now if I can just unlock my tension here, now I have a procedural means of activating that thing, which wasn't there before.
Right. I see that.
Yeah. So then what's going to start to happen is, and this is, we get into the pedagogical aspects of monologos a little bit here, but it always begins with, after you make the unformed sound, we're moving towards phonetics. As it's going to start to get to words, people are going to get really propositional.
Right.
So it's like, okay, just name what you see. What catches your attention? Wall, white, here, light, here, light, rays. Why? Close my eyes, open again. Right. So it's literally kind of like what Steve March is doing with the feeling saying. Right. Something like that. Right. But it's you're trying to tie in the world to the sound making.
Right.
And then trusting that, okay, if I turn that into phrases, that's going to open up something. I don't know what that is, but it's going to pop it open.
Right.
Yeah.
And is that where the sort of rational transjectivity is coming in?
Oh, okay. I want to say this as a surprise. But so we have been doing our own experiments on circling. And we do what we call somatic circling, which is you're physically embodying the other person the entirety of the time. And that becomes a part of the conversation. So for example, like if I'm doing this, I'm noticing how much tension there is here. And it puts me into a very I feel like leaning back quite a lot. And I don't know what this is, but this becomes part of the intersubjective.
Right.
And we do it with the whole body. So this is where I think Tiamat for me is really, it baffles me, but we start to layer these practices. And I'll show you an example of the layering of practices.
Right.
Where the monologos in the last observation that we did, the monologos, which Tamaki would go into with a group, they would somatically circle her. It creates an object or some point of interest to talk about, which we can then do a dialogos about.
Excellent. Did you have a film of this?
Yeah. But I have one more thing to get through before I get to this layering of practices.
Oh, I shouldn't have interrupted. Keep going.
I curated it for you. Okay, so I want to show you another practice that we do, which is an embodied contemplative practice, somewhat derivatively named Actio Divina. So it's not from a book. I mean, it is from a book. We still take the source, but it's in action as opposed to in imagination. So it has the same procedure as Lexio. Right. Except that whatever is most salient and resonant to you, okay, you stand up, and then we do that expressively, not imaginatively, expressively.
Right.
And then trying to hold that state and see what's it like to embody that in my current environment.
Oh.
And you see Tamachan doing the. It's kind of cool, actually. This image, I like it.
Can I pause for a sec?
Yes, of course.
So I was teaching one of the instructors at Return to the Source, Lexio, and when I said imaginal, he didn't just do it mentally. He started actually enacting the imagery that was coming up for him. He was doing. He was reading from the Tao Te Ching, and he was, and the thing that grabbed him was darkness within darkness, and he started doing this, and then he sort of,
Yes.
and then he folded in, and he started doing the expressive enacting spontaneously.
Yes. Axio Divina.
Yeah.
And this also has like similarities with things like the Michael Chekhov method and psychological gesture. I come from the Grotowski School of Actor Training. So the sense of the psychophysical is very, very much rooted in Tiamat and what we do.
So here, Tamaki, you're basically, there's some image has come up out of the text for you, and now you're translating it into motion. Do I understand it correctly?
Yes.
Oh, I'm going to add this in right away. Because I find myself doing that spontaneously anyways.
What were you reading, Baba?
The sutra from Buddhism.
From when you were in the temple?
Mm-hmm.
So do you teach people basic Lexio first and then take them into Actio Divina? Is that what
Yes.
you do? Excellent, excellent. This is an amazing bridging practice, but layering is fantastic. So has my work sort of helped you think about this and put it together? Has that been happening for you?
All of your meditation practices, so all the way from metta straight through to prajna and beyond,
Right.
forms most of the metacognitive training, because we need meditation practice and the contemplation practice.
Right.
The way it bridges into everything else is what I'm contributing in terms of like, how do we alter the meditative practices and contemplative practices. There is the one that we added, which was I think it was the Chakra Shambhala mantra. I think that's what it's called, which Jung had talked about in a lecture at University of Switzerland. I think it was Zurich, and that's been really, really interesting in terms of. Never mind. I will leave this for later, because then we're getting into the aspects of self and parts work. But oh yes. So this is the third part of Axio. So is that sense of like, what's it like to embody this?
Yes.
Yeah. And then now I've asked, what is this disclosing for you?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know about.
That was so cool.
What happened to you the day after you did this?
Oh, in between, like immediate, how do I talk about that state where in between asleep and awake, like
Oh, yeah,
yeah, there is that state, right?
yeah. That
And while I was in that state, there was a voice that came to me that look at yourself from higher states.
right.
You are feeling sleepy, but you are feeling sleepy because you are seeing from yourself. If you were to see it from higher perspective, and then the sleepiness does not matter. You know that you have things to do after you think to do, and you know that only choice, waking up is the only choice.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I didn't feel sleepy anymore.
well, that answers a question I was going to raise, because like what part of the end part, like you're doing a lot of evocation and provocation, but like the third part is like invocation. How are you invoking the sage that wrote the text? But that's how it came to you. It came to you like this voice from the outside. That's fantastic.
So while I was in
Axio.
like there was still like a question about what is this text doing to me?
Yeah, exactly.
But the actual disclosure, or maybe there is still more, but it emerged with the voice as a voice.
I am so impressed and grateful that what you're doing, and like and like what you're integrating from your practice with my work, and like taking it in such powerful direction. This is so cool.
I'm personally super grateful for your work, and we've been watching Awakening from the Meaning Crisis this past few days. I don't know, the amount of consilience for me is kind of bizarre. But this is my sort of like my own sort of wanting to check the biases. It's like I have to make sure that there's enough plausibility. Right? And so when I hear, more so than just necessarily speaking about it with the two of you, it's like when I hear that Rafe is doing very similar things spontaneously.
Very similar. Yep, exactly. Very similar.
You want to see some somatic circling?
Yes. I think this is a really cool idea.
Come back to that, and then come back to where I am today. So it's like,
I now feel very grateful for this practice. And now I'm sensing this, like how much enjoyment I feel from actually being embodied. It's like, oh, this is kind of cute.
Indulge in it. Like, I feel like there's a sense of indulgence, like
a little bit.
I mean, like I'm enjoying like letting myself go into feel this. Also, like I really what you said to me really landed about the body, how I'm actually emulating the body, because I felt that like not just left or right, but even like sometimes even direction of attention when somebody is speaking. And yes, I may be using the body, the correct leg, the correct hand, but then when
I'm gonna add this in too.
To Ethan, should I like follow her head in the direction, or should I look at Ethan? You get me? Should I follow the attention, or should I follow the mechanical? You get what I mean? Yeah, and that's something that also kind of like creates that sense of I don't even know what sense is it. It's just that sense of confusion.
What's very alive for me is and what's very alive and very resonant is this sense of confusion, of being unable to look at something and all of its minute details. And because you see so much, you don't know what's the correct context to follow.
Yeah. Okay. That lands with me a lot. Yeah. The context, multiple contexts. There's the meta context, and then there's also like that mini contexts
that affect
how I direct my attention. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's alive for me is actually kind of resistance to imitate the somatically. Mm-hmm. And I feel since it's not a circling, it's organic circling, so once I try to like pick up one person and then imitate and then like, resonate and then to actually like stay with that person and then to change and then to somatically and then next, and I feel like I don't know what I am. I don't know what I'm feeling. I feel so dissociated from myself. And also like there's language thing, so like there's a lot of focus required, and then those are like constantly shifting. So I was like, maybe I'm not gonna do that. But still like some like gestures, I will keep it to like embody the visual and like as a symbol and understand the symbolic meaning of what this person means and embodying, but not embodying for myself and like visualizing.
I am recognizing by imitating, mirroring you and Ethan, I'm recognizing a sense of deeper understanding in the processing of information that is happening, that I'm trying to work on a constant basis. What I notice is a comfort in the outward hand movements used to explain and build relationship with as a strategy to integrate information inside the body. And I'm feeling quite grateful and comfortable in mirroring the two here.
That was amazing. You still there? I'm not getting your sound for some reason.
Yes.
Oh, there you are. There you are. That was amazing. Yeah, I can. So we just before I went away, we did another Circling into Dialogos weekend workshop, and that somatic circling would be just fit right in. So I can see how you've taken work that Guy's done and I've done and you've integrated. I'd like permission to use that somatic circling within my practice and with what I teach people. So if that's excellent, excellent. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. Do you, so I have the videos. Do you also have any instructional material? I'd like to learn how to do some of this, especially the animal forms at the animal forms, the axio and the somatic are really, the other one I can't see my getting, it would take too long. But the axio and the somatic, I think I could get to fairly quickly. But I'd also like to, invest some time, maybe learning a bit of around at least one or two of the animal forms, because I could integrate that with my Tai Chi practice, and that would be astonishing. I don't know. I'm just I copied. I think I copied the chat stuff.
Yeah. The layering of practices is the 5th video.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing about the layering of practices. At the core of it, there always has to, in Tiamat, always beginning with a diagnostic exercise to test fluency. And that's called playground. And so the instructions for leading playground are in the document that I sent you over email. But the playground is basically where you can experiment with acceptation.
Oh,
so
I see.
Enter it through push hands. You can enter it through animal forms. You can enter it after having done axio.
I see.
You can get into that and then do somatic circling from there. That last video is like 26 minutes, and you get to watch Tamachan and Ben and go through this. I mean, playground itself it's enacted cognition. All it is do a physical activity, notice that your mind is doing its own thing, recognize that it changes, change your physical action according to the mind at the same time,
Right. I'm
change
listening.
your quality,
Right.
right? So try and match what's happening in the mind with what's happening in the body. And so from there, it's like, wow, okay, now we're starting to get a sense of what patterns are occurring in the way that I behave on the playground.
Oh,
And
okay.
This is, I want to talk about this in relation to agent arena relationships, because it's really important. We've noticed quite a lot that, because when you do a workshop, when I do a workshop in countries, there is always going to be a mix of locals, and as much as 5 to Midnight is concerned, we bring in foreign participants. The foreign participants are in an alien arena.
Yes.
They don't speak the language. They don't know what they're doing. There's very little agency. As far as they're concerned, it's absurd. But in the playground, what's happening is that there is an opportunity to co-create an arena and to reclaim said agency.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah? So now within that frame, though, it's like, okay, if the agency that is being reclaimed is like, all right, it's only social. It's between here and what is being made around us. How are we going to take this and accept it into the real world? How are we going to take this state? Now, one will argue, I think I'm trying to do some research into that, that it has much more to do with the flow state. It has much more to do with increasing the likelihood to access flow on demand at will.
That lands for me. That seems very theoretically plausible, at least prima facie. Yes. Probably flow, but the way you're opening it up, it's flow for transfer. So it's not going to stay just in this context. You're going to get it in a shape that's going to like percolate through the psyche and permeate through people's lives. And so it's taking on ritual flow, not just sort of local flow. Right. What I'm trying to get at is I'm trying to figure out what are the differences between when you flow in a video game and it stays locked there, and when I'm flowing in Tai Chi and I can see it percolating through my psyche and showing up in different parts of my life. That's what I mean by ritual flow as opposed to local flow.
Yes, but here's the thing, John. I propose to you that there is a relationship between the two, and that relationship meets in performance. So performance,
exactly.
Actualized ritual. Yes. So okay, I want to just lay a little bit of historical context for this. It's like if we imagine the shaman, right, which is basically we study Richard Schechner's work. Ritual leads. The performance grows all the way from ritual, right? But ritual does not happen in isolation. It happens in context to a collective. What is happening to the brain when that performance is occurring? And I just, even today at probably about 8 p.m., some actor somewhere is performing something, right? Now that means whatever the genre is, whether it's a dance or it's a naturalistic performance, I'm having a heated scene. Okay, I'm experiencing this welling up of emotion. I want to kill the person who is performing as my husband, but I also do need to know, and my light is there in 5 seconds. There is a very profound balance that's occurring between the instrumental consciousness and the affective consciousness. Those two things cannot cancel each other out. They have to be in optimal grip with each other. So there's a ton of literature on this. On performance being an altered state of consciousness. Yes. And some of them vary between.
Can you send me some of that literature? Because I've been, wow, the synchronicity. Because there was one of the instructors at Return to the Source was coming out of, and also one of the students coming out of a theater background, and I've been reading on ritual, and Victor Turner has the book Theater and Ritual, all about the connection. And so if you can send me some of that literature about theater, altered state, and theater and ritual, because I'm thinking that theater work is one of the domains that should be included in any ecology of practices. The reason why this is important is I'm going to Vermont in a couple of weeks, and we're getting a lot of the leaders of the emerging communities, and we're trying to figure out what a meta curriculum for any ecologies to practice. What kind of things should it include properly? And this kind of stuff you're talking about here, the bridging, the layering. So if you send me some of that literature. I was distracted, not completely while you were talking a couple minutes ago, because I was just making sure I got some of the stuff you sent me. Because because this is so exciting. So I interrupted, but I wanted to give you just another sense of the consilience that's happening around all of this.
Now, I want to reply to that consilience by giving a lot of context here. And part of that has to do with the fact that if we were to understand, say, performance from an Asian context, which is where obviously I come from, right? There is a great tradition of performance incorporating all kinds of physical practices and spiritual practices and wisdom practices.
Yes.
If we take Japanese no theater, for example, it is not separate from Buddhism and Confucianism and Shintoism. All of it built in. In fact, historically, performers, actors in particular, have a spiritual civic function. That civic function seems to be, or at least my theory is, to propose a contextualized event from which collective wisdom can be gleaned.
Yes.
And so, okay, so fine. If we let's just put that context aside and boil it back down to mechanics again. There is literature out there, and I will also include this in the package that I will send you, that actors have been shown to have very high rates of metacognitive introception accuracy.
Yes.
So they're much able to sense specifically where the body is.
Yeah.
So, okay, well and good, let's leave that aside. Now, when it comes to talk about consciousness and we talk about the grasping of the self, okay, what is an actor doing? And Ben has been really instrumental in this. He has shown that he practices all the meditation and all the Tiamat and everything, right?
Yeah.
He started to get spontaneous effigies, mental effigies in his mind, which is able to propose and say, okay, I'm going to go on stage. I'm going to meditate first. I will create shunyata, what he calls shunyata, and I'll send you his reflections as well.
Yeah.
I will create shunyata. Shunyata gives me a sense of peace and calm. Okay. And then I can manifest a space and an archer with the red bow, and that gives me focus to do something. He's invoking active imagination in the form of the intra-subjective. And I've recently started working with an artist who has DID. And I've been circling all of his personalities.
Just for the audience, could you, sorry for interrupting, just say what DID is, please.
Dissociative identity disorder. We used to think of it as multiple personality disorder, but as far as it's not causing him dysfunction. It's not destroying his life.
Yeah.
But this is particularly confluent with the Chakra Shambhala meditation, which I need to get that name right, that Jung was talking about, where you divide up your thinking faculty, sensing faculty, feeling faculty, perceptive faculty, and then you have a council. Yeah. A council between these aspects of self is the intra-subjective as opposed to the inter-subjective.
Yes.
And so when we were mapping out Tiamat in terms of its practices, and I believe I have this here which I can also share. It's a bit like I'm still making sure that it's like not so ugly. I'll pretty it up. But this is what that looks like. Okay, so this is a map of the exercises that we have at the moment. I haven't put in their progressions. But you see, this, where am I? With this Axio Divina animal forms. So these are all your basic practices. They go into the middle. You go in here, Chakra Shambhala is here. I would propose that in terms of dealing with what is the construction of the self, is that, okay, we're saying that the self has one identity by normativity, yes? Tricky, because the actor has to be able to cognitively portion out a part of it and go, you, please activate from 8 to 10 p.m. on a Friday night with a 15-minute intermission in between, and I will take you on board, and to do that safely.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, with the accurate like cognitive scaffolding and reframing. So once we can get into an intersubjective dialogue, we start to look at it in terms of meta maps for Tiamat. So I think between metacognition and transjective rationality, Ken Wilber's work, Integral Theory, is a wonderful meta map. We have metacognition and introception, which is something that we use called principles of presence. Right. So it's either you're moving or you're being moved, inside or outside, taking space, not taking space. And it's just a framing device for one to take a look and go, what do I consider being moved? What do I consider moving? What do I consider?
Yes. Please send me all of this material.
Yes, I will. Now, the thing is that I also have a map for the interoception and active imagination, which I'm working on right on the next tab. But here, between the transjective rationality and the active imagination, between the intrasubjective space and the transjective space with the world and everything, we're talking, or at least I'm theorizing that we should be moving towards building for somebody else through this ecology of practices, an autopoetic pantheon.
Yes, yeah.
It's a personal mythology, a religion that's not a religion.
Yes, yes.
Because it's just the way that they operate themselves metaphysically on a personal level.
Yeah. This works out. This integrates with some of the stuff I've done in IFS, but in internal family systems theory, and especially not Rafe, Raf's work on ally work, which is amazing, and also some of the work I've been doing, scholastic work on ancient theurgia. This maps in perfectly. This has been so cool. So yes, I like I said a few minutes ago, I was trying to make sure I got but send me all the links you sent in the chat. Send me everything. Send me everything you got, because I want to know it. I want to make use of it. I want to reflect on it. I want to talk to both of you again. This has been, I think, just an amazing. This is so exciting. Oh my gosh. So,
John, wait. Sorry, I've got one more thing to show you. I've got one more thing.
Sorry. Okay, yeah.
And it has nothing to do with Tiamat. Well, not completely. But the question is, what are we going to do with this? So Tamacha and I got married 2 months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And this, we are planning on getting a house and building a family, as we always do. I am working with a couple of the guys from the Dialogue OS group, Clayton and Sam.
Yeah.
And we have found a place in Japan.
Right.
It used to be an active volcano. It's called Dragon Lord Gorge. And there's an old inn that is on sale there. So we're thinking of purchasing that inn to create a research center for art and wisdom cultivation.
Wow.
I've spoken to Alexandra about it also, because she's doing a similar project in Peru. I think someone's doing Netherlands.
Yes. This is so exciting. People taking my work and doing this stuff with it. My gosh.
That's the place.
Oh, wow.
The hotel is fine. Like the hotel is fine. It's got 20 rooms.
Yeah.
And it's 20 rooms for people to come in and stay. We'll live there as well. But where it is positioned is this place called Nikko. Can you give me a history about Nikko? Because you know it better than I do.
You know that.
So Nikko is basically where Buddhism was born in Japan. Fukai was there. It's a hot spring hotspot. Even the Emperor of Japan marked that as his spiritual place for rejuvenation.
Oh, okay.
These waterfalls are about 15 minutes away.
Oh, wow.
By foot.
Yeah.
By foot. And so we're going to be taking this place probably about like end of this year. And we are building in a Tiamat training course that's for 1 year. It's a hybrid course. We're going to have apprenticeships in traditional craft. So specifically carpentry, flower arrangement and cuisine, flower arrangement and dress code, flower arrangement, dress code, carpentry, and what was it called? Banquet culinary cuisine. I'm working on the deck now.
Right.
Yeah. There's so much work to do, fam. There's so much work to do. But yeah. Then we'll have drop-in events as well. So like circling weekends, etc., etc. I would love to involve you and Guy and whoever else to be able to come into conferences, workshops for like a week, a couple of weeks. It's up in the mountains away from the city in Tochigi, which is where Tamachan is from. Yeah, that's happening.
First of all, thank you. I will talk to Guy and Chris, and we will probably take you up on this. I might like to take at least somehow. I'd like to take some of the Tiamat training at some point with you. And if, as this goes forward, since this will be on the video, send me information and I will promote it. I'll broadcast it on all of my platforms and talk about it. We'll have you on again. Yeah, definitely want to support this work. This is thrilling and fascinating. This looks amazing. And I want to do whatever I can to help you get it up and get it becoming autopoetic and taking on a life of its own and really seeking out what it needs in order to keep going. So you've got my support on this. This is really exciting and interesting stuff. So cool. So cool. I was about to give you the last word but that's a very good last word. So that works out perfectly. Yeah, send me all the material you're going to send. And for this video, send me anything as soon as you can, please. Any links you want me to put into the notes, because I'd like to upload this for the Friday of this week. And that would be great. You really impressed me. really cool stuff. Like this is exactly what I'm talking about, like in spades. And what Rafe does and the consilience between them. There's important differences, but profound similarities. And it was just yeah. And you've convinced me. Both what happened to me at Return of the Source and this. There has to be a theatrical ritual domain that for any good ecology of practices. I'm now convinced of this as just central. So thank you for reinforcing that. I'm going to take that into the Vermont conference.
Thank you, John.
So this has been wonderful. And like I said, please send me whatever notes you have. And we're all going to talk again. So this is one of a series of Voices with Vervaeke we're going to have. This has been so utterly thrilling. And encouraging and engendering of hope. The fact that so many people are doing like this extremely talented and sophisticated, creation, participatory creation of, profound ecologies and practices. That's great. Really great. What I'd like to do next time, once people have seen this, and it's shift and have a discussion about the metacognitive spirituality, let's just call it the cognitive spirituality domains you touched on, bring them into sharper focus and then turn them on. How are they responding to the meaning crisis? That's what I'd propose we do our second conversation on.
Yes. And actually, I think the other day I was watching, a couple of weeks ago, I was watching your talk with Jun Song Kim.
Yes.
On magic and the mechanics of it. So I think as a practitioner, as a practice researcher, first of all, it has to move itself into the procedural somehow.
Yes.
It can't remain in the propositional space. It doesn't work that way. So I also want to talk to Greg, just because Greg Enriquez's work is crazily influential also.
Oh, okay. So it would be great perhaps for the initial one, but let's do two things.
Eventually.
Yeah, no. What we'll do is we'll do a second one, like I proposed to the two of you, and then we'll do maybe a third one with you and I and Greg Tamaki. If you want to come, you're invited, and I'll set that up too. Just send me an email. I'll link you with Greg, and we'll make it happen. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so very much.